My name is John Cannon, and this is my second installment on YouTube of massive hospital cover-up, murder on Clifton Road. I'm going to start this off just like I started my first one off. Again, we will be updating these and adding to these YouTubes at least once a week, maybe even more often than that. But you're going to get a real good feel of how massive this cover-up that eventually murdered my father at Emory University Hospital truly is. Again, I never want this to happen to your family. And it goes on all the time. Everything I say in this YouTube, just like the first one, and just like any follow-ups, this is a Bible. I'm a Christian, and everything I say is the absolute truth. You can take it, as they say, to the bank. I'm going to break this YouTube down into 3 segments. I'm going to try to say as organized as I can so as not to confuse you. But again, this is just an inkling of this whole shenanigan that totally destroyed my family and to this of myself. I went to Georgia Southern University, graduated in 1977. I graduated of Georgia State University in 1988. I've worked at 3 major Atlanta hospitals: Grady, Georgia Baptist Medical Center, which is now Atlanta Medical Center, and Gwinnett Medical Center. I also was a hospital department administrator. I'm a hospital and nursing home's worst enemy. I know how they do cover-ups and how they do them all the time. I'll never say that Emory has not done wonderful things as far as medical research. I'll never say that because they do. But as you listen to these YouTubes, you're going to figure out that Emory and a lot of other hospitals, let's put it this way, all other hospitals and all nursing homes are involved in some kind of unethical and criminal activity when they cover up patient accidents and mistakes. Statistically, depending on the part of the country you're in, 10 to 30% of all hospital admissions involve accidents. And statistically, 77% of those accidents involve a cover-up, where the families lied to, medical records are changed, patient signatures are forged, and illegal documents like that do not resuscitate form I showed you on the first YouTube. These are felonies, but they get away with them. You'll very rarely hear of doctors and nurses going in front of a criminal jury and going to prison. I'll give you an example of how prevalent this is at Emory. If you go by the statistics, in the year 2014, Emory University Hospital, their main hospital, and now they own a dozen Metro Atlanta major hospitals, but the main hospital admitted 140,000 inpatients in 2014. If you go by the statistics, anywhere from 14,000 to 42,000 of those patients, there were patient accidents and mistakes made. And 77% of those mistakes were covered up. I don't know how many of those mistakes and accidents ended in needlessly killing the patient. I have no idea. But let's think about this realistically. Do you think Emory Hospital had 14,000 to 42,000 medical malpractice or criminal malpractice cases reported? Probably had a handful. Now I'm going to tell you how this destroyed my family. Again, I'm an only child. My mother passed in '96. This cover-up began October the 22nd of 2004. I'm going to also begin to show you some legal documentation. And again, this is just part of it. There's a lot more. Shortly after my father's cover-up began, as I said in the first YouTube, on day 16, my father told me what happened when he was able to communicate with me. And he told me about the drop. Emory never wanted me to know that. They wanted my father to be dead by day 16. So after he told me about the drop, I wrote a letter to the Emory administration, letting them know that my father and I would be filing criminal and civil lawsuits. I have the letter in here, but I can't find it right now. But it's in here, and I'll show it at a later time when I actually get more into detail about the documentations. What I do have here, oh, here it is. It's November the 18th of 2004. So roughly a week before Thanksgiving of 2004. That my father and I, because of instances, which was a lot about drop. At that time, I still did not know about his forged signature on the do not resuscitate form, nor did I know about the MRI that was done immediately after the drop. But there were also some things done between when I wrote this letter in November the 18th, 2004, from the first day of his admission, which was October 22nd, and the drop of 2004, that also Emory had committed crimes. But I still did not know everything. But I knew enough stuff to let Emory know that I caught him. This was November the 18th. Roughly a week later, I was called into the office of the Emory Hospital nurse director. She told me straight up, and here's where the first threats began, for me never to bring up the word drop again, ever to their staff, because it scared them. Well, they all knew it was the truth. But that's just the beginning of the threats that Emory wanted to shut me up, and it became more verbal, and then they became physical. And I showed you last time, I'm missing teeth. I can't see out of one eye because I was forced to take a poison, and I've got a scar at my right temple. But that's just a few of the things that have been done to me to try to shut me up. I also want to show you a letter, and if you've seen the movie The Verdict, this was talked about in The Verdict. It's a blackmail letter. I got my father home after 8 months. On June the 20th of 2005, Emory's scumbag attorney, David Ladner, and I call him a scumbag because he called my father a liar about the drop. He sent this letter to me at my father's house, making an offer of $75,000 that they were going to give to my father to fully and finally resolve any and all claims that my father believed he may have had against Emory. You see, this is a blackmail letter. Probably a lot of families would have said, yeah, we'll take the money and, we'll shut our mouths. My father was not a cusser, but when I showed him this letter, this is exactly what he said. He said, son, tell Emory to shove it where the sun don't shine. They think they're offering me $75,000 for me to be quiet about all they did to me. Don't they realize I can't walk? I'm barely alive because of what they did to me. And they're trying to offer us some money to shut us up. Call up David Ladner, sir, and tell him we don't accept it. So as you're beginning to learn how the big boys play the game, and again, in Atlanta, Georgia, there is no bigger big boy in the medical field than Emory. I buried my father in 2007. I kept him alive for a while. In the process, there was a lot of corruption by the Dekalb County DA's office, by the state of Georgia, even by the feds to shut me up. I'll get into that later. I've got the documentation to prove it all. After I buried him, I was a full-blown whistleblower by then. No one wanted to be around me. Again, I'm an only child. I had one beautiful special needs child. My mother had died several years earlier. I was all by myself. And Emory and their thugs made sure I had nothing. And I became homeless. And I lived on the streets for close to 4 years. I stayed in Savannah at the old Savannah City Mission off Bull Street, if you're familiar with Savannah. I stayed there for 11 months. I also stayed at Salvation Armies in Atlanta and Athens. I also stayed for many months at the Atlanta Mission downtown next to Centennial Park. I had nothing, but I'm not looking for your sympathy. I like a little empathy because this fight to get justice for my father's murder is also a fight so that your family will never have to go through this again. I'm going to shift to a more fun segment now, and it's about the University of Georgia, which I've spoke briefly about last time. And this is some memorabilia that I have. And I used to own hundreds and hundreds of memorabilia items from the University of Georgia. Ticket stubs, programs, signed helmets, signed balls, signed jerseys. I only have a few things now. And I'm selling these few things to get a little money to publicize what happened to my father. Again, please go to GoFundMe. If you can make a donation, it would be very appreciated. But the few things that I still have, and I don't have much, you'll see on my bed. Again, I've been at this motel for 3 years and now going on 6 months. So the holiday season that's coming up, this will be my fourth Thanksgiving and Christmas all by myself in this motel room. Some of the items you might be interested in if you're a Georgia fan or even if you're not. Latrell Green, this is a game-worn away jersey and bottoms, and they're both signed. I know you've heard of Dominique Wilkins, but Latrell jersey is the leading scorer in Georgia history, over 2,000 points. He also has a distinction of being one of just 2 other players in SEC history to have 2,000 points and 400 assists. One of the other players I'm sure you've heard of, his name is Pistol Pete Maravich. I have a jersey signed by Ray Goff. And of course, I remember, and a lot of y'all will too, if you're as old as I am, which is 64. He was a heck of a ball player for University of Georgia his big year was 1976. And I believe that year he was Heisman Trophy 5th place finisher. Of course, we know that Ray, after that, became a coach at Georgia. Not as successful as we would have liked, but hey, we can't win every ball game. So the Latrell Green, the Ray Goff, and then I've got some balls. I've got some Georgia team balls. No, none of these team balls are from the national championship team. I used to have them. I no longer have that. So I've got some team balls. You just need to put air in the balls. The balls are fine. And then I've got some individual balls signed by Garrison Hurst, Rodney Hampton. And then I actually have some coaches' balls. And then I've got two balls here that have nothing to do with Georgia. Well, no, because Georgia never played these two players in college. One is signed by the great Hall of Famer Earl Campbell, and another one is signed by a Hall of Famer who was the first NFL player to ever win 5 Super Bowl rings, 2 with the 49ers and 3 with the Cowboys, Charles Haley. This item I'll probably not part with. It's from the Georgia Notre Dame Sugar Bowl, January the 1st, 1981. And it's signed by Herschel Walker. It's just too many memories with my father. I don't have much left of my father. I want to show you something, the only thing I have of my father. This is all I have. If you're familiar with people that use this tool that are either stroke patients or spinal injury patients like my father was, this is how they put on their socks and shoes. It's got his name on it. That's the only thing I own of my father. That's it. I have one picture of my father, and that is on the cover of my book. That is the only picture I have of my father. That's it. So a few of these things I'm probably going to keep. These are some old Georgia programs. Also, I still have about 500 Sports Illustrated that are in great condition. 99% of them are in great condition. And people on the cover like Michael Jordan, of course, Muhammad Ali. I mean, Jordan's probably been on the cover 40 times. But I've got about 500 of these. So if you're interested for Christmas, possibly, or for your sports room at home, jerseys or balls, again, this money will go to fight elderly abuse. This is a picture. My father was at the first Georgia game at Sanford Stadium in 1929. That's what Sanford Stadium looked like in 1929. He was 13 years old. He rode the bus up from Atlanta to Athens. If you're a Georgia fan, you may have this book. It's called Glory, Glory. It was written, co-authored by Lauren Smith and Louis Grizzard. And I'll probably keep this also. Probably keep these programs, but I used to have hundreds and hundreds of them. Most of these programs were from back in the 70s. So please, if you're interested, I do not have a website, but you can email me at smoltzie, SMOLTZIE, the number 4, the number 10, at gmail.com. And we can talk about the price of these items. So please, if you're interested, I'm going to part with them. But this is all I got. Besides, I have 4 grave sites at Westview Cemetery. That's all I've got in my name, nothing else. These clothes are not even mine. So please let me know if you're interested. I've got one more segment that I want to talk about. And if you've watched the first YouTube, I talked about how Emory lied on the first day of my father's medical records. And I showed you those records. Well, I'm going to go into a little more detail so that this never happens to you. And I want you to understand this because I'm trying to help you. Remember, I've got a medical background. If you don't have one, you'll never figure out these cover-ups. And I'm not saying it happens all the time because it doesn't. But particularly against old people and the poor, if there are hospital accidents, and you as a family member think something's not right, and hospitals, staff, nursing homes won't answer your questions, they're probably hiding something from you. So I want you to always stay with your loved one. Never leave them, not for 1 second. Also, keep a diary. Take notes. A nurse comes into your room, put what time that nurse came in there. Put down the nurse's name. Put down the doctor's name. If they're giving your loved one some medication, put down what they're giving them. You've got to be an advocate, because if something is not right, they're going to lie. They're not only going to lie to you. If you do happen to hire an attorney, that attorney, they know the game. And all it is a game. And because of that, my father is dead. So I want to go back and discuss for just a couple minutes, and then I'll end it and wish you a happy Thanksgiving of the first day of the nurse's notes and the cover-up. And it's in here somewhere. And again, everything I will tell you is the truth. I'm just doing this to help you. But I also want to get justice for my father. And I'll come right out and tell you this. I'm suing Emory for $84 million. I've reported these crimes shortly after they happened. I've gone to the law over 50 times. Again, you will see documentation of that later. There are multiple law enforcement individuals that never want you to know they covered this up. But I'm going to go back to the first day of the medical records. And I want to show you how deceitful Emory was. I showed you this on the first video of all the lies. Emory not wanting me to know that they had dropped my father, that he had gone down for an MRI. If you're a medical person, you can very quickly see and understand their lies. There are 3 major lies in here. One is, about every 15 to 20 minutes, they state they're trying to put a catheter in my father. That was totally not needed. He was there for muscles, back spasms, nothing else. He did not need a catheter, but they're just lying. These are all lies. They also lied, and they put in L12. There is no L12. That's lumbar. You've got the cervical, thorax, and lumbar. You've got 7 bones in your cervical. You've got 12 bones in your thorax. You've got 5 bones in your lumbar. Any doctor or nurse knows there's not an L12. I don't even think these were written by the nurse. And if you've seen the verdict, you'll start to understand how hospitals get nursing departments, the doctors involved, risk management department, administration, medical records. You get them all together, and they start coming up with their lies. And who's going to say what? But one of the craziest things in here was at 5:35, when my father was down having his MRI, is they said they went to this room up on the 7th floor, and they gave my father a pop test. That's a pelvic exam for females. It's crazy, but it's not crazy. Family members, they're not going to know this. Attorneys, they're not going to know this. Only people with a medical background know this. Also, I'm going to show you, so you're starting to understand why Emory has tried to hurt me, and I'm still being threatened. Again, I want to show you that do not resuscitate form that they forged my father's signature on. It's in here. I showed it to you last time. Emory has 2 DNR forms. One's legal and one's totally illegal. And this one is totally illegal. And I'm going to show you the signature they signed. They forged my father's name, and how different it is from his real signature. Again, I went to the law with this information. Emory told the law, you're not messing with us. Here's my father's signature on that forged DNR form. You'll also notice they never put a time nor a room number where this form was signed. But there's his signature again. There's his signature there. This is his signature when I checked him in a couple hours earlier. There's his signature. R.C. Cannon. Not anything close to the signature that they forged. He wrote this signature when Emory asked him, and I was standing right next to him. He was in a hospital bed on the 7th floor. If he wanted to be in the directory. In other words, when people call Emory, did my father want his status to be told to the person calling? And he said he didn't. So are you starting to understand how serious this is? These are felonies. Emory has not been punished at all. The only person that's been punished is me and my family, my little special needs daughter. Hopefully, you don't want this to happen to your family. So doing nothing about this helps no one. I've laid my life on the line as a whistleblower, not only to get justice for my father, but to protect you and your family. Because no one else is going to stand up for you. They're just not. You do see stories periodically about elderly abuse and about people dying from this elderly abuse in medical facilities. But that's just a part of the story. If you really want to know what goes on, you have to talk to whistleblowers like me. And most staff that work at these hospitals and nursing homes, they know if they come forward, they're going to be fired. And they're never going to work in the medical profession again. Well, again, I was a family member, just happened to have a medical background. So again, thank you for listening. Again, this is awful. It's sick, it's pathetic. And my father went through pure freaking hell. And I have, and so has my daughter. I'm lucky to be alive, but I'm tired of living in motel rooms. I'm tired of living in homeless shelters. I'm tired of living on the street. I didn't do anything. But hopefully, if you are a Georgia fan or just a college football fan, I got a ball from Earl Campbell. I got a ball from Charles Haley. You will email me again at smoltzy410@gmail.com. We'll discuss a price. The money's going to go to fighting elderly abuse. I'm wishing you and your family a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll be spending another one all by myself in this motel room. Before I die, I'm going to get justice. I'm not in good health. You might can see I'm not. I'm in kidney and heart failure. I'm retaining about 15 to 20 pounds of fluid, even though I'm still able to ride a stationary bike anywhere from 15 to 30 miles a day, which no way I should be able to do it. But by the grace of God and being a former marathon runner, I guess I'm in decent shape. But I'm dying. And by golly, before I die, I'm going to get justice for my father, just like I promised him on his hospital bed, so that I can go by, as you heard from the first YouTube, I can go by my parents' grave and say, Dad, I got you justice. Again, thank you so much. God bless. And everything I've said is the truth, and it will always be the truth. Please go to GoFundMe. Email me about Georgia stuff. If you're just a Georgia fan and want to talk, I'd love to talk to you. If you're a medical person or even a non-medical person, if you want to talk, if you want me to be your listening board, please call me. And particularly call me if you think something has happened to you or a loved one in a medical facility that has harmed you and you think there's a cover-up involved. I definitely want to know about that. Again, God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving.